course, hard act to follow, and now I've scratched half of my notes and my focus areas. So I'm going to reshift a little bit some of the focus. First of all, I want to introduce introduce Terri and talk a little bit about our journey together. I've been working with Terri going all the way back. It feels like 5 years, but it was back in October 17.
More like 10.
Right. Working in these transformation projects, they're like dog years. They just take that much out of your life. Going all the way back to October 2017, Thornton was lucky enough to be selected to support USDA in helping stand up the FPAC Farm Production and Conservation Business Center. So just a little bit of history, and then we'll tie the human capital component in because I think it's important, right? So we've got three very different organizations: RMA, risk management, FSA, Farm Services, and NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation, that made the strategic decision, looking at their organizations separately. They had some pretty significant duplication in their mission support functions. Each of these three organizations had, and their own HR organization, had their own budget and finance organization. So, they took the opportunity to set up a shared service center, really consolidate, took these 15 disciplines, budget, finance, HR, acquisition, IT, and consolidate into the business center. I think we're at about close to 2,000 employees. It's a pretty big organization now, and the dust is starting to settle a little bit. We're about 3 months past the launch of the business center. So now, as the organization continues to evolve and focus a little bit more medium and long term, right? Obviously, when you have such a transformation like this, important things like making sure people are paid appropriately, making sure all the badges work, making sure now we're consolidating 3 sets of email addresses. That all makes sense. But now that we're at the point where the dust is settling a little bit, and this business center was designed to increase efficiency and effectiveness. I'd love your thoughts and perspective around how we continue to focus on the workforce, notions of reskilling and upskilling. And I love the panel. They validated Thornton's definitions of reskilling and upskilling that we've been working on for the last couple months. So as the focus now gets to be a little bit more medium-term and long-term and strategic, what are your thoughts? What are the focus areas on the workforce that will ensure that the business center realizes its strategic vision?
Great question. I did the panelists before. I think I actually learned a lot of words I can take back and just kind of put my thoughts into place. So just to let you know, the FPAC mission area is 22,000 people. So we are not a small mission area. And our mission is to serve the farmers, the producers, the forest stewards that we have. So what I think we need to concentrate not only in the business center, oh, sorry about that. I'm usually very loud too. What I'd like to talk about is customer service. What we provide to our citizens, what we provide as a business center to our customers now. Our administration, our secretary, is really concentrating on customer experience. It's really hard for us to define what customer service is, right? How do you measure that? What is it? And what he continually talks about is customer experience, that feeling you get when you walk away from a place. So we have, one of our strategic goals is to increase the customer experience. So that's really what I hope that we are going to be concentrating a lot on in the next year is, upskilling, I like this, is really trying to teach internally to our workforce. Even though you might not know your defined roles right now because you're shifting, right? Our artificial intelligence, hopefully we're taking that tactical operational work away from people, bringing in technology. But really, it's how I help you. right? What do I make you, when you come in and you ask a question, whether it is to get insurance from us or to get some type of an indemnity product given to one of our farmers, how do you feel when you walk away from us? So that's one of the things that I think that we need to, as we're doing this change management within the federal government, trying to change to technology, we still have to go back to, we have a service to provide. So I really think that that's what we need to be concentrating on.
It's interesting and a great focus area. You know, having personally been involved in the federal space, I was in HR for a few years and have been in consulting.
Sorry about that.
Actually, it's best found. All the HR people in the room, the best foundation I've ever gotten to make me successful in this space was a few years in the HR space. But it's interesting now that public sector organizations, I think they've always been doing it to a certain degree informally, but formally now are really focusing on customer service, customer centricity. We've got design thinking, centers of excellence, a real focus on ensuring that the customers that we provide are having a positive experience. And that, to your point, is not something that's easily trained, right? There isn't a whole lot of classroom-based training around, you know, how to deliver good customer service. It really is, you know, a combination of the right mindset, the right organizational culture, the right personal touch, the caring of that person, and a lot of private sector organizations that are known as best in breed in the customer space. It's interesting enough that they focus a lot on that first interaction and making sure that they get it right, but they really focus 3, 4, 5 times more effort on if that first interaction didn't go right, how do we continue to keep you engaged as a customer? It's almost like a recovery mechanism. And if you think about it, think about interactions that you've had either at a store, purchasing anything, right? When I think about some of the best customer experiences I've had, they've usually grown out of an initial negative experience. But this organization and or individuals in the organization were able to turn me around from a customer perspective, keep me as a customer, and really go above and beyond to try to, I guess, you know, maybe make up for an initial misstep. Make sense?
No, I think that's perfect. And to take it kind of back to the business center that we're standing up, trying to get our employees to understand that it's a shared service, right? So their customers are probably their coworkers, right? So you're going to call me, HR, I always go back to HR, right? You're going to call me about your benefits, right? So my job is to make sure that you get the information you want, that I make you feel good, that you know where you're coming from, right? And I think that's where, when you come to a shared service, I don't think people are used to seeing their coworkers as their customers. And that's where that upskilling is going to come into play, and that we need to concentrate in the business center. But to take it further, I think the mission area needs to do the customer service to the citizens that come to our counters.
Now, I was going to talk briefly about how do we continue to invest and defend a little bit training and development budgets. I think the first panel did a pretty good job answering that. The one comment I will make, and I understand, I've been in several of your shoes trying to find creative ways with limited budgets to continually invest in people. And I think to a certain degree, the budget constraint complaint is overinflated. It's absolutely real. I get it. The dollars are a challenge, but we need to think creatively about other commodities, and a big one is time. When I think about some of the best developmental opportunities and experiences that I've had, and one of them, going back when I was, I guess it was a SCEP back then, you know, Pathways program today, some of the best experiences that I had goes all the way back to my federal career, and those best experiences were not the 2-day classroom training around HR 101. It was a 60 or 90-day operational detail that didn't cost any anything really outside of my time, a detail supervisor's time, willing to invest in me. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in the development space, thinking more broadly than training. Think on the job, think rotations, right? And think about some creative ways to invest in your people using other commodities. Now, I get time is a tight commodity also.
I think time is one of the, I know we talk about funding, but I think time is something that we really have to talk about. And, you know, going back to doing more with less, it's hard when you have a lot of work to do that we're not probably in a space where we're utilizing technology to the best that we can at this point, and taking somebody who's producing something that's very important to say, hey, guess what? I need you out of the office for a week to do this training. It really does do that backlog. I think time is just as important as funding. Good point.
Sure. Let's talk about technology a bit real quick. And I know the first panel did a little bit also, but I think we can all agree technology is growing at an exponential rate, right? The technology is being embedded into the workplace faster and in different ways than any other generation, and it's only going to grow faster, right? It's not going to slow down. So how do we, in the public sector space, continue to invest and bring technology to bear more universally? How do we make our workforce better consumers of the newer technologies, the best and brightest, right? You know, the Business Center, its foundation is being built off of ServiceNow, for example, right? So from a standardized intake perspective, it's a relatively new solution. It's being rolled out. We are moving away from phone numbers from a customer service perspective, for the most part. We're sunsetting email addresses, right? And we're coming up with a common intake mechanism that we can track universally and provide, for all intents and purposes, real-time data around closed and open tickets.
So I go back to upskilling. I think Robin was sitting here earlier. I think that's really getting your employees to embrace it. It's a change. We've really got to communicate with them, make them feel comfortable in that space. I think that's very important. I go back to data. I think there's so many great stories out there, you know, and a lot of us that get to a certain level in our career have the ability to see the mission in its entirety and be able to see these different pockets of excellence going around, you know, but how do we share that to that one or two very critical occupations that, you know, we're very thankful. They're heads down, they're doing their job, but at some point we've got to use this technology and this data sharing. I do see that Ted Koch from our group is speaking today. Again, our administration, our Secretary Perdue, is doing some major infrastructure changes at USDA. I'm very excited about it. We are actually creating a data lake. We're bringing in a lot of different data sources. We're USDA, right, guys? We're the farmers. So we're getting our technology to where it should be, right? But we're pulling all those data sources in, and Ted is leading this effort on our data analytics. And I think that's going to lead to a lot of success and helping people upskill, reskill. Once they know the stories and what their contributions are, and people start to have that self-awareness and understand they can help, I think that's leadership's role right now, is to tell that story, to motivate and get people to want to do those opportunities to step out of their safe place, challenge them.
Love the focus on data. Last question, and I think this is an important one that most, if not everybody in the room, will relate to. So we've got massive amounts of data, right? A lot of it is unstructured. There are challenges. We've got governing organizations that require federal organizations to report out progress, right? Internal, external. Data, I think in a lot of ways, some organizations have gotten to a point where they're tracking so many measures and metrics to try to make decisions A third of their focus on a monthly basis is just calculating those numbers, and no decisions are actually made from them. In the human capital space, if we could only track one thing, one measure, what would it be, and how can we use it to drive decision making?
I know you and I go back and forth on this. I still think before you do succession planning, before you do training, before you do everything, we have to do workforce measurement. What are we actually doing? And help the managers show, and I believe strongly in fill rates. You know, what we've done over the time, and again, been doing this for a little bit, almost 30 years, right? We're doing more with less, but what happens is we don't have enough people sometimes to do the jobs. I think we really need to look at what the work is, what needs to be done, and once we start to look at some of that, then we can see how can we do it better. I think we have to kind of baseline the work at some point, and I think we're doing some great work over in USDA now to do the workforce measurements. So that's what, even though we disagree sometimes on that.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.